The Outcast. A society's values are in trouble when Riker's violates the Prime Directive.
The Enterprise is investigating the disappearance of a shuttle belonging to the Jeri, an androgynous race who have brought several members on board to help.
They do a bunch of scans, but they can't find anything, and Data finds an energy reading with no source, so they launch a probe.
Data says the word phenomenon at one point, which is singular, when he clearly means to use phenomena, which is plural. What an advanced robot.
And the probe suddenly disappears, which gets played up pretty big. It's just a probe that disappeared. It's not that big of a deal. They think they found Null space, and my note says, which I'm sure Robert will bitch about.
Whatever. It's null space. They're just making shit up. They say it's a previously theoretical concept, and they say that that must be what it is, even though they've, again, encountered so many weird other things. It could be anything.
They say the shuttle is still inside the null space, and they think they can get it before life support runs out. Riker teams up with one of the Jeri, Soren, to pilot a shuttlecraft into the null space.
Riker explains that they will use phasers to try to map the null space pocket.
Soren is super good at piloting a shuttle.
But this shuttle belongs to not only a completely different culture, but a completely different race altogether. Soren understanding the controls would be like someone who's really good at Star Wars Rogue Squadron piloting the Enterprise.
Just gotta get that Rogue Squadron plug in there. Who do you think you are, me and Total Recall?
And they do discuss Soren's race's gender and the use of pronouns, and Riker runs into the same problems that I did.
For 2 days, I've been trying to construct sentences without personal pronouns. Now I give up. What should I use? It? To us, that's rude.
In 10 Forward, they eat split pea soup.
Which Riker says is very healthy, and I was impressed that he did enough research into Jedi biology to determine their nutritional needs.
Well, I'm just glad the Jedi hadn't done research on humans and said, wait, this is pea? And they continue the discussion about the Jedi's non-gender. Riker explains the difference between males and females in the most scientific sense.
Snips and snails and puppy dog tails.
And the conversation moves to what kind of women Riker is attracted to. He doesn't openly say that he will bang anything even remotely female, but the sentiment comes across.
And he asks Soren what it's like on a planet where the people have no gender.
Just because we don't have gender doesn't mean we don't have conflicts. We are very strong-minded.
Soren gets called away, and the other Jedi seems to be uncomfortable with the tension between Soren and Riker.
Later, they're mapping the null space pocket by using phasers, and it appears to be working. Then Soren asks about mating practices between two sexes.
And about Riker's sexual organs, which surprisingly doesn't cause him to immediately start taking his clothes off.
And the question of human-Jedi sexual compatibility comes up.
Which seems like it would be incredibly unlikely that that would actually work.
But Riker is all about testing the theory out.
And Soren says it wouldn't be permitted anyway because their society views sexual dimorphism as primitive.
Dimorphism. And you accuse Star Trek of coming up with bullshit words.
Riker's erection accidentally knocks into the controls, causing the shuttle to brush against the null pocket.
And it knocks out one of the engines.
Soren gets knocked out.
But Beverly helps out, and Soren asks Beverly what it's like to be a female, and attraction.
And Soren also asks about feminine hairstyles and makeup, which made me think that Soren would use those techniques to try to appeal to Riker, but that doesn't happen. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Riker comes in, and Soren is eager to get into his pants. To get back to work.
We cut to a poker game where the gender discussion comes up.
They bother me.
Why, Worf?
Well, they just do. They're all alike.
Troy suggests playing with multiple wildcards, which Worf says is a woman's way of playing because women need more wildcards to support weak hands.
It is difficult to know what is exactly in my hand. However, I will open with 50.
Regardless, I would not want to play a poker game with 3 wild cards. Come on.
I thought you were going to say with Troy.
Well, that too. And Beverly mentions that Soren seems to be attracted to Riker.
Riker and Soren work on the shuttle, which again is dumb because Soren wouldn't know what Soren was looking at given that it's alien technology. That would be like asking someone who works on PCs to fix a Lamborghini.
Soren says Riker is very attractive, and that's a terrible risk.
Those who are discovered are shamed and ridiculed.
Some of the Jedi are considered throwbacks from when the race had two genders, and those feelings are forbidden.
Soren has feminine urges, like wanting to bang Riker.
And asked Riker to think about it. I don't know why I said it like that. Geordi and his beard say the shuttle is ready to go, so they head out again and enter the Null space.
As soon as they go in, they lose contact with the Enterprise, and for some reason everything inside is white.
They find the missing shuttle, and the passengers are alive, but they don't have enough energy to beam back out. So they channel all possible energy to the transporters and end up blowing up the shuttle to get out. It was very dramatic.
Beverly says the unconscious Jedi will be okay. One of the other Jedi takes note when Soren tells Riker she'll see him later, and Picard tries a little too hard to pretend he doesn't notice.
Down on the planet, Soren talks to Riker outside,
and they go through a whole overblown conversation about plants before finally making out.
Later on the ship, Riker visits Troy, and he brings up his relationship with Soren. And he's approaching Troy not because she's the ship's counselor, but because he's concerned it will affect their existing relationship. Riker has been in a lot of relationships on this show, and I can't really think of another time when he went to Troy about it.
Yeah, I thought he was hoping this would turn into another situation like Ro, and maybe he'd have multiple things going at the same time. And she says they'll still be friends and always be a part of each other's life.
Because of their physical intimacy, Soren has been taken into custody and is on trial.
Which Riker interrupts and tries to take the blame, but Soren openly admits that she is a female.
It is not unnatural. I am not sick because I feel this way.
She gives a very impassioned speech, but it ultimately has no effect.
Riker offers to give Soren asylum on the Enterprise, but it doesn't work, and Soren is taken away to be rectified.
Soren is sick, and sick people want to get well.
Riker explains what's going on to Picard, who throws the Prime Directive in his face.
Which doesn't make sense with how they've talked about the Prime Directive before, especially given that they've been dealing with this race the entire episode, and Riker's relationship with them didn't appear to be a problem before. And Picard tells him not to throw away his career over one alien.
Later, Worf visits Riker in his quarters and requests to accompany him down to the surface because he knows he's going to rescue Soren.
And I noted that he had no problems walking around, so it's good to see that his new spine is holding up. They go down to the planet, where they assault the people, presumably guards, that are walking with Soren, and try to take her away.
She's already been exposed to their treatments and says that her relationship with Riker was a mistake.
I had these terrible urges, and that is why I reached out to you.
And I wondered what Worf was doing all this time.
Probably massaging his spine.
Back on the bridge, Picard asks Riker if their business with the Jedi is finished, clearly impatient to get to an episode where he has more to do. Riker says yes, but he and Worf went down and assaulted people. I don't think that would just get brushed over, so I can only assume that Riker somehow destroyed the entire planet.
The Outcast. Overall?
I don't think we've had an episode before with as blatant a message as this one, and I'm not a fan of heavy-handed messages. A story with a message is fine, but when it becomes a message with a story, it can feel too preachy and not like a genuine narrative. And I don't think this episode went quite that far, but there were times when I was afraid it was going to. Giving Riker a personal stake in things helped a lot, and I was genuinely surprised at how it ended. I did not think things would play out the way they did, with Riker essentially failing to save Soren, and I actually liked that. Soren turning away from him at the end was a bit too abrupt. I get that they had changed her brain or whatever, but I thought it would have been better if Soren had actually been willing to talk to him, but just not had feelings for him anymore, where now the connection was one-sided. But I guess the way they did it fits better with their message for the episode. Plot-wise, I thought it was kind of whatever. Null space was a potentially interesting idea that did not make any sense the way they presented it, of course, and that they didn't really even do anything with. Despite the heavy-handedness, I didn't think this episode was bad, and I thought the relationship worked well enough, but I felt like it needed a little more development, and the story needed something more, maybe a better B-plot or something. I gave it a B-.
I also gave it a B-. I agree with your sentiment that this was a message with a story. It was very upfront, even from the first sentence, by pointing out that the Jedi were androgynous. They haven't really done that with any other races. I mean, they ran into snake people and dog people. You would think they would point that out. I thought it was good that the episode focused mainly on the two characters. The null space thing was throwaway. They could have come up with a more realistic situation for why they were getting involved with the Jedi.
Yeah, they didn't even need really a B-plot. They could have just met this new race or something.
Yeah. Subtlety was not a strong point of this episode. And this season is hitting some pretty heavy subject matter, more so, or maybe more obviously so, than past seasons.
Yeah.
The ones that come to mind are violations, or ethics, or silicon avatar. Crystals are people too. And this was another episode where Picard really pushes the Prime Directive. Is that his character now? Because he did the same thing in ethics. Has he learned from his past mistakes? I guess the only way to really know is when it actually applies to him if he chooses to use the same message.
Can't wait for Riker to twist things around on him.
They probably all revel in that, just waiting to shove it in someone else's face. I think I'm gonna have pepperoni tonight. Well, the Prime Directive says that we shouldn't introduce pepperoni to this society before they discover it naturally. I also thought it was ridiculous that the planet did not notify the Enterprise and or Starfleet that 2 citizens got the crap beat out of them by Riker and Worf, after they clearly identified who they were.
I'm sure the entire next episode will focus on that.
It's just a matter of perspective. I could see if they managed to pull Soren aside without anybody else noticing, but that's not what happened. I wonder if it was a conscious decision to further reduce Soren's identity for the first 2/3 of the episode by not referring to Soren by name. And for as heavy as this episode was for Riker, I really don't see it developing him further as a character. I don't think this will come up again.
I mean, he's always got Ro and Troy to go back to, so...
Yeah, where was Ro?
She was banging Troy.
Oh, that's right.